It's time to start voting on the game of the year, and I'd like to thank everyone for their suggestions. It's been really helpful to remind me of exactly what's gone on in the past year. Even in this bizarre, tragic pandemic year, there's been a lot of chess played. Some classical games, some over-the-board tournaments, and a lot of chess online as well. And I've made my selection, a pretty random, subjective selection from those games. Now, let me explain what I've done. We're going to have two groups of 5 games, so 2 semi-finals. When you vote if you look in the community tab, only 5 options are possible for a vote. So we're going to have, I repeat, 2 semi-finals of 5 games each. So what I'm going to do in this video, and then after, what I'll do is I'll take the top 2 from the poll, those 2 groups, plus a third one, perhaps the third highest placed loser. So we'll eventually end up with 5 games in a final, and then for the second round of voting, you can vote on that one and we'll find the best game according to you. I hope that's clear. If it's not, go back to the start of the video. It saves me repeating it. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this first video is introduce the first 5 games of one group in the semi-final. And I'm just going to zip through very quickly and give a quick summary of the games. And I would urge you to have a look at the original videos that I recorded and look at the nuances, the detail of these games before you make up your mind and vote. So here is my first choice. Anatoschuk against Okubo, played in the Gibraltar Masters 2020. Now, we saw this game on the channel not so long ago, so hopefully this is fresh in everyone's memory. But this was a wonderful attacking game by Anatoschuk. So here we go. Started out Vachier-Lagrave playing very aggressively, casting on the queen side, and she threw the king side pawns forward. And, well, there wasn't an immediate breakthrough, but after these few moves, well, it was clear that white had some control in the centre. Rook e1 is a nice move, controlling the e-file, and white's bishops looked pretty good. But this manoeuvre was really good. Very interesting idea, very unusual idea. Queen f1 and queen h3. Now black could have defended better. Well, isn't that always the case? And here Vachier-Lagrave came up with a really imaginative idea, taking on f5 and rook d7. So if queen takes queen, then rook takes g7. Now, it was still incredibly complex. We reached, after a few moves, we reached this position. And here, another amazing move, h5. And then another incredible move, rook e2. And Vachier-Lagrave had calculated that, in fact, her king was fine. It was all to do with this move, queen d4, hitting g7 and the rook. And in this position, she had judged and calculated very carefully that her king was actually safe here. And that's where black resigned, with the king in the middle of the board. Brilliant game. Really daringly played by Vachier-Lagrave. Okay, here is nomination number 2. Giri against Carlsen from the Skilling Open. So this was played at the 25th of November. Not so long ago, but do you know what? I could have picked so many games by Carlsen. He had an incredible year, very successful in these online tournaments. And this one wasn't the most spectacular game of his by any means, but I thought it was beautifully played, precisely played, in spite of being a rapid game. So it started out as a gioco piano, and here Carlsen sacked a pawn, and we reached an endgame pretty quickly. And here was, I think, a brilliant piece of judgment by Carlsen. So he's got the two bishops. He's a pawn down. And he gave up this beautiful bishop. And he had correctly judged that actually, if anyone has winning chances here, it is black. And his play was exemplary here. Now, once again, if Giri had defended better, he could have held this. But isn't that always the way? Carlsen's play here was brilliant. First of all, the king came into the middle. Then, well, some beautiful shuffling here took control over the d-file for the moment and managed to bring that king to e5. And that was absolutely key in the game. Even though it doesn't, even here it doesn't seem like a big deal because, well, even if those pawns are taken, well, how is black better there? But this was pretty incredible. This bishop did a fantastic job. Rook d6 was a great move. Preparing to switch here and put pressure there. The bishop, that's a starfish bish, if ever I saw one. Absolutely wonderful piece. And it came, well, the rook managed to get in. And once we got here, once the rook was in, then Carlsen has a winning position. Even then, it took great precision to actually force the win. Brilliant technique. I think Carlsen in his element there and against a very, very strong opponent, Anish Giri. So that's my second nomination. Third nomination, one that I showed on the channel not too long ago. Erwin Lamy against Fabiano Caruana. Now, this started with this strange h6. And it was a strange opening. Lamy played g3. But in this position, having stabilized the center, instead of playing bishop g2, which is certainly not a bad move, Lamy decided, okay, I'm going for it with g4. Tempting when the pawn is on h6. And indeed, he managed to break open the kingside in a moment, or to some degree. And here's an interesting moment, because pawn takes pawn is kind of counterintuitive to give up that center. In fact, it meant that exchanges were prevented, and that enabled him to keep making progress on the king side. Now, it wasn't that clear. Let me leap ahead. We got to this position, and he sacked a piece and managed to break through. Now, this was not a perfect game by any means, but there were some brilliant moves. Bishop f7 I really like. And here, well, at this moment, when you think it's completely winning, Caruana put up an amazing defense. Rook here, giving up a rook, and bishop c3. But Lamy managed to just about keep his head. He found some interesting moves, rook e5. And finally, well, in this position, succeeded in exchanging off into a winning endgame. I really like Erwin's enterprise in this game. He played some very risky moves, and he managed to negotiate the tactics and defeat, well, the number 2 player in the world. So I think a worthy contender. Right, game number 4. We have Dvierny against Shiroff. Now, this won the Brilliancy Prize for the online Olympiad held in the summer. And we have Alexei in his element. Started out as a Slav, a complex opening. We had this position with white starting to, well, perhaps set up play on the king side, but then Alexei started expanding on the queen side. Queen g3 is an interesting idea. Actually, this sort of holds up white's play. And then we had the start of the fun, rook c4, offering exchange for compensation. Nothing definite, but this is what we like about Alexei's play. You know, he just has a feeling that this is going to give him the initiative. And then a little later on, we had this extraordinary move in this position, knight e4, allowing the queen to be taken. If it's taken, then this will force a checkmate. Let me show you one variation. Here, threatening rook takes knight mate. Here, knight c5, an amazing move. And after this, rook c5, and there's no decent defense to taking. And here, remember, if that pawn advances, there's a bishop that can just come out here to deliver mate. And then a couple of moves later, Alexei made a second sacrifice of the queen here. Same square. And that one forced mate in a couple of moves. Just brilliant. How you compare that with Giri against Carlsen, I don't know. Anyway, it's your choice. Two very different games, brilliant in their own ways. So let's move on to the fifth and final selection in this Group 1 semi-final. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave against Jan Nepomniachtchi from the Candidates Tournament. So, well, these are the two leaders in the Candidates Tournament. And this was a crucial game. So it started out as a winnower variation. And, well, Maxime enjoys attacking. He likes the initiative. And he gained ground on the king side. And then some interesting stuff on the queen side with rook b1. And the queen came out. And it's a typical winnower position. Strategically incredibly complex. And I think a fascinating choice by Nepomniachtchi. Not playing something turgid, going for a draw. This is a full-on fight. And I think there were some fascinating moves here. So here, Maxime retreated the queen, for example. And then castled. So having done some damage on the king's side, the king is now stuck on f8. And he's gained space with these pawns. Then he concentrated on the queen side, a4. Well, it's a typical winnower move. But these touches here I thought were excellent. Sacking the exchange. He appreciates that he's going to be able to blast forward with f4, f5. That's why h5 was played. It's not really very good for black to play g6. And Nepo blocked with f5. And now, lovely maneuver. We have bishop c1. And the bishop bounced out to a3. And this was a wonderful moment strategically. So this bishop is a superb piece. But Maxime recognized that actually the best thing is to exchange it off. And that allows him to conquer the f5 square and get his pawns rolling on the king side. So if f takes, you can blast forward with f5. And even this endgame I thought was incredible because Maxime managed to keep the initiative here. So he took on f5, so he's got these beautiful e and f pawns. And now the queen invaded. And this is hopeless. And yeah, that was the end of the game. I think a brilliant strategic performance by Maxime, but when it counted, he had the tactics under control as well. So that's my selection for the first 5 games. Go to the community tab and you'll find the poll there. You can vote there. And I think if you click on the I here, you'll find the poll there as well. And also you'll have links to the games that I've mentioned here. And do please go through these games, the longer videos, and just familiarize yourself with these games. And only then vote. Really difficult to weigh this up. As I said, I will take 2 games from this group, and there'll be a third place highest loser as well. In a day or so, I will present the next semi-final group of 5 games for you to vote on as well. And then we'll have a final poll for the 5 games that you decide. It's very subjective. It's a bit of fun, but it's great going through these games again. See you soon.